Welcome to the Wide Lens podcast, where expanding your perspective on recent history is our mission. Listen to untold accounts from overlooked voices and see familiar stories in a whole new light. Ready to dive deeper? Let's begin.
On this episode of the Wide Lens podcast, we're honored to have Dr. Dan Diamond, MD, join us. Dr. Dan is a physician based out of Bremerton, Washington. Over the years, he's been busy sharing his hard-earned wisdom through speaking engagements, coaching, and leadership training. Today, we're diving into one of the most challenging moments of his career, his firsthand experience providing medical triage support in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast in late August 2005, leaving an indelible mark on the region's history. As one of the deadliest and costliest disasters in U.S. history, this powerful hurricane battered Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama with ferocious winds and a devastating storm surge. The catastrophic flooding that ensued, especially in New Orleans, resulted in the loss of over 1,800 lives and displaced countless families. Communities were overwhelmed, infrastructure was decimated, and the scars, both physical and emotional, are still evident today. In today's conversation, we're going to unpack Dr. Dan's personal journey on that fateful day. He'll share insights into the critical moments when rapid decision-making and sheer resolve were essential to saving lives amid chaos and heartbreak. Right now, Dr. Dan is taking the lessons he learned from these disasters and helping teams learn how to thrive under pressure. Having served in disaster responses in Honduras, Haiti, and the Philippines, Dr. Dan's reflections on his time responding to Hurricane Katrina promise to shed light on the challenges of emergency medical response and the profound impact such events continue to have on both survivors and caregivers. Welcome to the Wide Lens podcast, Dr. Dan. It's truly great to have you.
Thanks, Brad. I'm excited to spend some time with you exploring this. It definitely was one of the most extreme experiences of my life, for sure.
Awesome, Dr. Dan. Hey, Dr. Dan, let's kind of like backtrack to when you were a little boy. How did you become a physician? Where did this dream come from? How did you grow up? Where did you grow up? Where did this come from?
Yeah, I grew up in Tacoma and decided in the 6th grade that I wanted to be a doc. The 5th grade, I wanted to be a dentist. The 4th grade, I wanted to be a comedian. So it's like, it all worked out.
Fantastic. Did you bring your comedic chops into the world at all still?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I have an alter ego, a couple of them. I used to be a street mime in Seattle, and that's how I made my money going through medical school. No kidding. And
what did that look like? I mean, so you were basically probably over by like Pike's Place Market, that area?
Looked like this.
Okay.
White face makeup, classic mime stuff. Yeah. And I was at Pike Place Market and I did the street fairs, and yeah, it was not a bad gig.
How did it pay? I mean, I'm assuming it was all donations. Were they pretty generous with you?
Yeah, I mean, this was back in the day. So this was like 1983-ish. And I was making $20 an hour on a good day, just putting my hat out.
That's incredible. I mean, I'm just going to guess here, that's probably maybe $60-$70 today. That's amazing.
Yeah. It was a good deal.
Why did you choose mime out of all things? I mean, you're a great speaker, and this was a role where you couldn't say a word. What made you decide that?
I love telling stories. My dad was a great storyteller. And I saw a woman named Toad the Mime performing at the Spokane World's Fair. And I thought, man, that's incredible. What a great way to tell stories. And so I started teaching myself. And then it was, a year or two later, she came to Washington State University where I was going to school. And while she was there, she put on a workshop in the drama department, and somebody knew that I was interested in mime, and I got to go to her workshops. And then I eventually ended up studying with Barry Rolfe, who trained with Marcel Marceau with DeCreux, who was like the ultimate wizard of mimistry. Is mimistry a word? I think
it is now.
That is
absolutely.
Yeah. So I did training.
Did you have to do some things just because the public really wanted to see it? Did you have to do like mime stuck in a box? Did people love that type of thing, or mime going down the stairs? that
Yeah,
kind
I
of
mean, I used that kind of stuff, but I also did a lot of interactive things with my audience. In the Pike Place Market, we'd get a baseball game going. We'd have an umpire. I'm up to bat, had a pitcher, first base, the whole deal. And, I just get people from the audience and put them in place, and then we'd start playing, and it was fun.
What did the fellow medical students think of the fact that you were hustling, making a little extra cash, doing something that was totally outside what you guys were preparing to do?
I don't think they cared. I mean, it's either head down in a book or you got to go do something to kind of get your humanity back again. And nobody ever said, "Hey, can I come and join you?"
Not a one.
No.
Did your family ever show up? Did they ever surprise you by kind of like strolling through?
Yeah. I mean, it was an interesting thing because I went from, doing this mime stuff, and then they asked me to come in and do a presentation for the medical school on nonverbal communication in the doctor-patient relationship.
Did they do that? Did they do that because they knew you were a mime and they thought this is going to transfer over really well?
Yeah.
Great.
And so I came in as an old man, all hunched, not in mime makeup, but all hunched over with a, old man mask. And
did you pretend to have some type of ailment they had to figure out?
Well, it was at the University of Washington Hospital. And I just walked in on a lecture and everybody assumed that I was in the wrong place until the guy was doing a fake lecture and he stopped and I walked up and I had a whole bunch of different layers on. So, I had a big trench coat on. I peeled that off and kept going. And eventually underneath it all, I was in full tails.
Love it.
But
That's
yeah,
great.
I was like, how did your perspective on how you saw me as a human change when I went from an old man with a walker coming in here versus some high class dude in a tuxedo with tails?
Dr. Dan, did I get it right? You started off as a Coug, is that right? So you were Washington State.
Oh yeah, right. I'm still a Coug.
Still a Coug.
Always a Coug.
Always a Coug. So for folks that don't know this, Washington State actually has a medical program now, but back in the day they didn't. So you basically finished your undergrad there, probably did pre-med, and then headed off to UW.
Yep. And one thing about the medical program that they have at Washington State University now that I think is brilliant is they also integrated a leadership training path through that. So when they graduate with their MD, they also get a certification in leadership. It's a brilliant idea.
That is great. That's amazing. That's a great connection. So, Dr. Dan, what type of physician are you? What do you do? What do you practice?
I'm a family practice doc. And I did the whole range of family practice. I delivered babies for a while, delivered about 2,000 of them. And then quit doing that. And I think somewhere around the year 2000 seemed appropriate. And then I eventually transitioned into doing urgent care medicine.
Great. So you're kind of like Mr. Huxtable. You delivered lots of babies.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, so Dr. Dan, you did that and then you started to get a bit of a bug you probably have always had a bit of a bug for adventure and also going outside of your comfort zone and helping and serving people with the skills and gifts that you've been given. How did that first experience look in regards to responding to a disaster? As folks know, we're going to be hitting Katrina heavy in this interview, but how did you get into that space?
Well, back in my third year of medical school, that's when we start our clinical rotations. I did a rotation in Thailand for about 2.5 months working in a refugee camp with Hmong refugees. And I only been married for 5 days, and my wife and I packed our bags and went to Thailand to go work in this refugee camp. And it was amazing to see medicine through a different lens. And it really gave me a deep passion for helping people that weren't as fortunate as we are. It's like, how do we reach out and take care of the people around the world that are really suffering? So that was an amazing experience. I also came away from that thinking, man, people are a lot tougher than what they taught me in medical school. Amazing.
So, Dr. Dan, why was there a refugee camp in Thailand? I don't know anything about that. What was going on?
It was right at the end of the Vietnam War. And the Hmongs worked as the kind of secret army for the CIA, is what I was told in the history books anyway. And then when we pulled out of Vietnam, there was a lot of persecution against the Hmong. So they left everything, hiked through the jungle, and then swam across the Mekong River and were picked up on the Thailand side of the river and brought to the refugee camp.
Wow, that's incredible.
I got to swim in the Mekong River.
What was that like?
It was one of those things that at the time, it seemed like a great idea. I'm really glad that I didn't get any parasites. And if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't do it. But
what made you decide to do it in the first place? Was that like a dare or?
No, I just wanted to be able to tell the story. I swam in the Mekong River. I mean, come on.
Is that like a murky brown river, or is it pretty clean? What's it like?
It looks kind of clean, but you don't know what goes on upstream. I'll just put it that way.
Did you leave Thailand like as fit as a fiddle, or were you feeling a little some of the after effects of being in a developing country?
I got salmonella when I was there and lost about 55 pounds.
Could you afford that? I mean, you're a fit guy already, and you don't look like you could afford to lose that much right now.
No, I walked off the plane, and my mom walked up to my wife and said, "Where's Dan?" And I said, "I'm standing right here." And she went, Yeah, I did not look the same.
Didn't even recognize you.
No, don't get salmonella. Don't eat street food.
Not a good plan.
No.
So Hurricane Katrina, getting to this disaster that you responded to, tell us a little bit about how you found out that you could serve at it. What did it look like to get there? Did anyone go with you? Tell us a little bit about the backstory of how you were able to insert yourself and your talents into that response.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. So in 1991, my buddy was doing the security for this event in Washington, D.C. that Youth for Christ was doing. And it was 104 degrees out. 400 people passed out. The fire department came in, hosed the crowd down, and they shut down the event. And it was like a big whoops. And he called me during the midst of it as he's running around. He said, next time you're going to be in charge of the medical. So we formed a medical team and ended up doing that event in DC and LA every 3 years. We went on to become the medical team for the Creation Festival out of the Gorge in Eastern Washington. We were the medical team for Seattle's Bumbershoot Festival. And when Katrina came, the guy that was my supervisor in Thailand was now working for Northwest Medical Teams, which went on to become Medical Teams International now. And I called him up and I said, "Hey man, this storm is coming at New Orleans. I've got a team. Why don't you send us down there?" And he said, "Well, we don't do domestic stuff. We only do international." And then he called me back when the levee broke, because everything shifted. When the levee broke and New Orleans got flooded, and he said, "I'm at the airport on my way to New Orleans, get your team ready." And we packed it all up and ended up heading down to New Orleans.
What is it like to mobilize a team? Is that something that you guys are just kind of throwing stuff into bags? Do you guys have a lot of equipment and resources that are met with you on the other side? Do folks have to, connect with their employer, with the hospitals and say, "I got to take leave"? I mean, to be honest with you, doctors in the medical profession, they're necessary across the entire United States. So just to leave an area of Washington State and jump into Louisiana, that's a hard thing.
Yeah, it feels like I don't have one, but it feels like the big red button that you hit. And my partners were incredibly supportive. It's like, I'm leaving, I'm going to New Orleans, we're leaving in 12 hours. I have a go bag packed with, I don't need more, but I had go bag packs. We had all of our main stuff. Our goal was to be able to be mobilized within 12 hours and on the road.
Dr. Dan, what's in a go bag? What is that? What do you put in something like that?
You got to have dental floss and toothbrush. My dentist would be proud of me.
Yeah.
Don't forget to take care of yourself.
Are you flossing every day?
Oh, every day, man.
Yeah. I went to the dentist a couple years ago, and the hygienist, she said, Brad, if you're not flossing your teeth, you're only cleaning 60% of your teeth. And that's what I needed to hear. And so I'm a daily flosser like you. I'm there.
My roommate said, was in medical school. When I was in medical school, he was in dental school. And he said, you only have to floss the teeth you want to keep.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Anyway, dental floss, toothpaste, a couple of changes of pants. Underwear is important.
Okay.
And great shoes are really important. Some rain gear, obviously, when you're going into a place like that. A sleeping pad, because you never know where you're going to sleep. Some kind of a sleeping bag is a helpful thing. I took, and you're going to laugh at this, my Palm Trio.
Sure.
To know what I just said?
Oh, yeah. That's like the precursor to the iPhone.
Yeah, it was so amazing. So amazing. Because I had my Palm Trio, it saved lives. I know that it saved lives.
Why would you say that, Dr. Dan?
Right in the middle of this disaster, when all this stuff was going on, and I'll tell you all about that, the crazy stuff that happened. But I got an email, which was like, what's email back then? I got my first email address. What is this? What do you do with it? None of my friends have email. But I got an email from the CDC saying that there was a bacteria, that they were starting to see some cases of this bacteria in the water in New Orleans, this brackish water. That water was nasty.
And this is because like the levees have collapsed.
Yeah.
This brackish, stagnant water typically not happening, right?
Yeah. There was this
unique circumstance.
Vibrio fulnificus. I'd never heard of Vibrio fulnificus before, but I will never forget it, because the email said it has a really peculiar rash, and it described the rash and said if you get it during the rash phase, it's really easy to treat with erythromycin. Common antibiotic. We had access to it. If you miss it, people die. And we saw 2 or 3 cases of Vibrio fulnificus that I wouldn't have known to look for that bacteria, but because the CDC sent us a note, it was like, yes, man, it was the technology at its best right there.
Palm for the win.
Yeah, no kidding. The Palm Trio. Flip that thing open. It was amazing.
I love that. That had I think there was like a little stylus that popped out of the back of it, and you used that to,
No, there was no stylus. You couldn't write on the screen.
No, you couldn't?
The Palm Trio did not pop open, flip open.
Oh, no.
It had buttons on the front.
It had buttons on the front. It had a big screen at the top, didn't it?
Not a huge one.
Okay. I'm confusing it with another one. The only reason I say that is I know that when the iPhone came out, Steve Jobs, they asked him, where's the stylus? Where is the stylus? And they said, this is your stylus. And he put his finger up and said, that's your stylus right there.
Yeah. What an amazing thing, though, to be able to get in the middle of a disaster. Do you know the interesting question that I was like, I had no idea about this because I never thought about it, is they had cows. COWS stands for Cells on Wheels. It was trucks that they brought in and set up around the elevated areas in New Orleans, so we had cell service. They hadn't brought the cows in, we wouldn't have had cell service, and people would have died.
And that's pretty common. Like in any disaster, they have those and they just deploy them to
because all the big stuff gets blown down and they bring in the cows. And like the media never talked about who are these guys that got their families all situated, did what they needed to do so they could get the cows and bring the cows in and set the cows up so that we had cell service. So we would get a message from the CDC and save people's lives. It was phenomenal.
It really is a testimony to the fact that there are so many moving pieces and parts in a disaster response.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Dan, you have your go bag packed. I was thinking there'd be like stethoscopes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
no
stethoscopes, but that's
okay. Okay, it is boring.
But stethoscopes, you have to have a flashlight. We had to have things so you can look in a guy's ear. Insect repellent is
what is it? What is that thing called? That device that you look into?
Otoscope, ophthalmoscope.
Okay. Learn something
we
new.
Pre-treated our clothes with permethrin. And I don't know the current research on permethrin and whether or not this is even good advice anymore. But we would take our clothes, put permethrin in soak it in the clothes, put it in a garbage bag, leave it in the garage for a couple of days, and then take it out, hang them up, and air them out. It would last 6 or 7 washes, and you'd get no insect bites.
Okay, so this is like an anti-mosquito repellent, that type of thing?
Yeah, there were mosquitoes, a lot of mosquitoes, but they didn't land on us.
That's great.
They ran away. Like, oh my gosh, here comes these guys from Seattle.
So, Dr. Dan, how did you make your way to Seattle? What did that look like?
To Seattle, we just looked.
I mean, I'm sorry. How did you make your way to Louisiana? Did you guys just like board a commercial plane together and meet up?
Yeah, we called the guys at Alaska Airlines. Were super helpful for us, and they got us on one of the flights. And we were initially deployed to Lafayette to work in a big, I think it was a big church that they had set up as an area for all the people that had been displaced. And about 8 hours later.
And where's Lafayette? Is that Georgia?
It's Louisiana.
Okay.
Louisiana.
I apologize, Georgians, for that one.
It's north of Louisiana. So we get this about 8 hours after we're there. I get a call from my buddy with Medical Teams International, who's now down in New Orleans. And he said, I need you to split your team and get half your team down here. Half stay there and work at the center there, but bring the other half down here.
And when you say down here, you're meaning right in the epicenter, right into New Orleans?
To the convention center.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where is the convention center, Dr. Dan, in comparison to the Superdome? Because the Superdome was pretty famous during that time because it went into disarray and it was being destroyed, and there was tons of people sleeping everywhere there. So where is that in comparison?
The Superdome, was. I mean, I can still see pictures of the Superdome in my mind. The Superdome was this. We were looking at all these people saying, we got to mobilize our team. And then they've shut the Superdome down and sent everybody they evacuated as many of those as they could. But then the only functioning medical facility in the whole city was at the convention center in the parking lot. And the Nevada National Guard was trying to triage all these people, and they were getting overwhelmed. And so my friend that was down there said, well, we got a team. We'll split them. Half will stay in Lafayette and the other half will come down here and we'll run this thing. And they said, yeah, bring them, man, bring them. So we ended up working in the parking lot.
What would you say for you, Dr. Dan, was the first scene that you saw that you were able to realize the scope of this disaster and how people were really impacted from it? Like, take us back there. Like, what were you seeing? What were you experiencing? When did you realize, like, this is a disaster that is going to be remembered in the United States for centuries, right? How did it hit you?
We need to figure out a way to make this a scratch and sniff podcast.
Right.
Because it wasn't, the first thing wasn't what I saw, is what I smelled.
What was that?
It smelled like rotting vegetables in your fridge. So when we left Lafayette in our SUV, we're driving down the freeway. We had to go through a couple different police barricades. And these were like not negotiable. This was, the cops are there with their assault rifles ready. I mean, they're in business. If you don't have the right to be down there, they don't let you through.
Why are they doing that, Dr. Dan?
To keep the looters out. Because lots of people love to go into New Orleans and just, go to Best Buy and clean it out.
Right.
Get their palm trios.
So what did you have, like something unique and specific that, like a piece of paper, or were you able just to communicate to them the reason why you were heading down?
And they were able to call back and confirm that we were supposed to be there. But after we got through that second barricade, it was like stepping into a scene from Mad Max and the Thunderdome. No kidding. Like, the freeway's closed. There's no cars. There's stuff all over the place, but you could drive down either side of the freeway going off the on-ramps and on the off-ramps. It was just wild, man.
So, Dr. Dan, even though there's no one on the roads, they don't care if you're going the wrong way down the freeway. They don't mind.
No, doesn't make any difference. It's
a bit.
The world it felt like the world had ended and everybody was gone. You just did what you had to do. You could drive 100 miles an hour going down the freeway. Not saying that we did, but maybe we did. And all the signs, along the freeway are all knocked down. And so we're driving and driving and driving. We have no idea. And this was before God invented GPS.
Right.
So at one point I said, I'm really not sure where we are. Maybe we should get off. We had a map, but maybe we should get off one of these exits and just check in and make sure we're heading in the right direction. So I'll never forget this. We got off the exit and there's another SUV. And I thought, oh, great. There's some dudes. We'll go ask them. So we park. I run up. They roll the window down. I said, hey, I'm Dan Diamond with Northwest Medical Teams. And we're supposed to get to the convention center, but we're lost. And the guy looked at me and he said, yeah, we're search and rescue and we're lost too. Is there hope when the search and rescue?
That is ironic.
Come on. Yeah. Oh my gosh, man. Oh my gosh. It was, we got back on the freeway. We just kept going and kept going and kept going. And eventually we ended up at the convention center.
What was it like once you got to the convention center? Were there people there? Why was it set up? What was the purpose of you being there and for folks to come on into that area?
Well, the National Guard guys were there and man, huge respect for the Nevada National Guard and the 82nd Airborne guys. Man, they were amazing people to work with. So we set up, we had some cots and stuff in the back of our SUV and we set those up and we had a small little tent that would fit in the back of the SUV that we set up. And then somebody else brought us a big tent. I have no idea where it came from. They just dropped it off and it was mostly okay. Not perfect, but we set that thing up. And we had a bunch of antibiotics and that kind of stuff in the back of our truck and some splints and, and clipboards and paper charts so we could keep track of what we saw and who we saw and where we sent them and all that stuff. This was way before electronic medical records. So we were just doing stuff by paper. And yeah, it was a parking lot that got converted into a triage unit in about maybe an hour.
And tell us a little bit about a triage unit. What is that? What's the purpose of it? What are you guys doing there?
Well, the triage, imagine a line of people. Well, imagine your current emergency room, because a lot of those are backed up right now too. What we want to look at is how do we get the sickest people in to get the care that they need? So we look at this from a color-coded system that we use. The green are the walking wounded. They're okay. They're healthy. They might have a scratch or something, but it's not a big deal. The red or the yellow are pretty darn sick and need urgent care. The red are really sick and going to have a fatal outcome if we don't do something right away. And the black are the dead. They may not be dead yet, but there's nothing that we're going to be able to do to save them because we don't have the resources. And it's really hard to be able to say, man, we can't do anything for this, and we need to focus on these other folks because we know that this person's not going to survive. We did not have blacks that came through, color code black.
So color coding, what would you say it looked like typically there? Were folks mainly like, they're, as you shared, they're going to survive, but they have immediate medical needs that they need to have responded to? Or
yeah, like we had one area with just a bunch of chairs, and we had really nice cushioned chairs. Guess where we got them?
No clue.
Convention center. We just went in there, brought the chairs, and set them in nice, like cushioned chairs. We set those things out. We had a bunch of those. So the greens, the walking wounded with their, maybe they didn't have any complaints at all. They just showed up. We'd sent them over there, and they'd wait for the helicopter to get evacuated. And then we had an area of cots that was designated as yellow and one that was designated as red. And we had teams working in those. So we had one person working with one of the local people from the Nevada National Guard, 82nd Airborne, or one of the local EMS people. And they're at a table, and as people are coming up, they're scoping them out and telling them, go over here to the yellow zone, go to the red zone,
And Dr. Dan,
have a seat in a nice chair.
Would you say that, like, when you got there and when your team was there, you guys were pretty prepared? Meaning, like, did you have previous training, and did other folks like you have experience in this? So when you got into that triage unit and you were, because this is not what you typically do. I mean, like you said at the beginning, you're delivering babies, you're doing a family care. This is very different. So are you a fish out of water, or do you guys feel pretty comfortable in this?
We had interesting training. So when we were asked in 1991 to put together our team, the Christian Medical Response Team, I went to Dr. Kopis, the guy that started the Medic One program in Seattle, and said, who are the best people in the world to do big crowd medicine? And he said, you need to go talk to this guy named Glenn Raswick out of the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic. So I called Raz on the phone and said, hey, my name's Dan Diamond, and we're putting together this team to do this thing for Youth for Christ. Can my wife and I come down and see how you set up? Can we learn from you? He said, oh yeah, man, we're doing Pink Floyd in the Oakland Coliseum. Come on down. We're doing it next month. So we flew down to the Oakland Coliseum and took care of 60,000 people, half of whom I think were stoned out of their minds, and worked with Glenn Raswick and the guys from Rock Medicine. And at the end of the deal, Raz came up and said, hey man, we thought you were going to be weird because you guys are Christians. So we figured you'd be just wearing white shirts and a tie and going, ew, the whole time. But you jumped in and helped. You and your wife were awesome, man. You're cleaning up puke with us and doing all that stuff. We're going to be doing the Grateful Dead in Seattle next month. You want to come? I said, heck yeah, man. Can I bring my team? And he said, are they cool? I said, yeah, I handpicked them all. Mostly based on their sense of humor, because I don't want to be in a disaster with people that get so focused they don't get anything done. You got to have a sense of humor, kind of play a light game so you can see what's going on. I'll never forget doing that first Grateful Dead show. Amy, one of the nurses on our team, had the shirt on with the big logo on the back that said Christian Medical Response Team, and this guy comes up and goes, whoa, he's just stoned out of his mind. Whoa, Christian Medical Response Team, you think Jesus got stoned? And she said, no, man, they tried to stone him, but he got away.
What a response.
He ended up getting crucified, but he came back to life. And the guy went, whoa, and walked off. We had, so we ended up doing all this other medical stuff with Bumbershoot in Seattle and the Creation Festival. I had tons of experience doing field medicine, not disaster medicine, but field medicine. So we had systems in place when we did these big concerts.
Does it translate well, Dr. Dan?
Yeah, incredibly well. And I learned most of my field medicine from the paramedics that were on my team. Those guys are amazing. And we had some really cool people on our team. And I'm always in learning mode. I didn't show up with, I'm the doctor, I'm in charge. I showed up with like, dude, I have no clue what I'm doing out here in the field. Can you teach me? And I learned great stuff from those guys. And so when we went down to New Orleans, we were very well prepared. We knew how to triage people. We knew how to take care of people. We knew how to get stuff done in the field, which is different than working in an emergency room, definitely different than working in a family practice office. So yeah, I was well prepared because of the stuff I learned from the paramedics and the fire guys that were on our team.
As prepared as you were, Dr. Dan, was there anything that you can recollect or you remember where it was just out of left field and it really posed a challenge for you while you were there?
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of things that were tough, and there were plenty of things that surprised me, but we didn't have communications with the outside world very well, other than my Palm Trio. And, still, who are you going to call in that situation? And General Caldwell with the 82nd Airborne was one of my heroes of that whole experience, because he came in with his guys and said, "You let me know what you need, we'll take care of it. We'll make this happen. We will figure it out." Well, it would be awesome if we had a radio so that we could talk to you guys. And the Navy was there. They had one of their ships that was with a hospital in it. So it'd be awesome if we could talk to these guys. And he said, "I'll get you a communications guy." Like later that day, a guy.
There wasn't any issues, Dr. Dan, around confidentiality or.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we still didn't tell everybody, but confidentiality rules are if you're a doc on the Navy ship, I can talk to you and say, "I'm sending you a 32-year-old patient that's got abdominal pain."
Right.
I'm not going to put the name over the radio.
But as a civilian, they didn't mind that you were listening into and having conversations with armed forces.
No, they didn't give me a radio. They gave me a dude in a Humvee with a big, huge antenna thing that was able to talk to all the helicopters. Like, "You just let me know what you need, we'll take care of you." It was phenomenal.
So they were able to help procure any type of resource that you needed?
Yeah, absolutely. And and then we got a guy that wore a backpack with a big, huge antenna that came off of it, and he was managing all the helicopters, because we had 6 helicopters at a time that were landing in the parking lot and taking off. By the way, have you ever tried to listen to a heart or lungs with a stethoscope with a helicopter going from blowing all the papers all over the place?
How did you manage it? How did you get past that? Sounds incredibly difficult.
Once they blow your papers away, you learn to keep them on the clipboard. And then you don't try to listen to hearts with the helicopters going. But it was amazing, because we would have a meeting once a day that I would go to that was with all we knew what was going on with all the hospitals in the surrounding states, and who had beds and who didn't have beds, and all this stuff that was, because the New Orleans hospitals were all shut down. So we had to send people out. So, you get somebody that comes in with bad belly pain that needs to be worked up. I go over to the guy with the radio in his back, tap him on the shoulder and say, "I got belly pain that needs to get out of here as soon as possible. Stand by, doc. We'll get you taken care of." Boom. He calls a helicopter. It comes, lands, gets this guy and takes him off. It was, if we didn't have the 82nd Airborne guys there and the Nevada National Guard, this would have been an impossible task. But with their help, they were able to get the stuff that we needed. It was just, and I'll tell you the other thing that was interesting about the military guys. It was hot. It was humid, 100% humidity, I think, and 90 degrees, and we're all sweating. And I never once heard one of those guys say, "Whew, it's hot out here." They always responded with, "What can we do, sir, to support you?" It was impressive.
So, Dr. Dan, you're saying that probably from the very top down, the response was as coordinated as it could have been.
Yeah.
And the country just threw resources,
yeah,
any and all resources needed at it.
It was amazing. It was stunning, because we had the support of General Caldwell and his guys they saved so many lives. And I think, that first, they had just, before we got there, evacuated from the Superdome to the airport, something like, and I may be off on the number, but was somewhere in the range of 13,000 people.
How were they evacuating those folks from the Superdome?
By helicopter.
That was the only way out. You guys were able to drive in, but they didn't want people taking those roads. They wanted them just up and out of there. Yeah,
the roads were not in good condition, and getting to the airport was not an easy thing. So it was it looked like, I don't know if you're old enough to remember MASH, with all the helicopters going back and forth. It was really something.
MASH has the most, I mean, I don't remember it too well. I mean, I was alive when it was out, but it was something that as a little kid I wasn't interested in.
Yeah.
But I remember hearing the theme song in the background when my parents were watching it. It actually is it is the most popular show ever of its finale. Like there's never been a show that's had more people watching it than the MASH finale. Did you
Yeah.
watch it?
I did. I don't remember it, but I do remember Katrina and seeing these guys go, man, this is like being a MASH. And the fact that none of them, not one of them ever complained. It was always, yes, sir, what can we do to help? It was really cool. I mean, I never really had an opportunity to interface with the military guys like that before, but wow, it was impressive.
Did it make you think to some degree, Dr. Dan, like, hey, I could have had another life in the military?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I live in a Navy town. I thought about applying, and my dad was a Navy guy. I thought maybe, apply to Annapolis, but they only let 20% of their applicants apply to medical school.
Yeah, I mean, you were living super close to like where a lot of our nuclear subs are. I think we've got a massive arsenal just down the road from where you're at.
You can neither deny nor confirm.
Lots of nukes, I think, frankly,
Yeah.
in that area. So, Dr. Dan, we're not going to get to it quite yet, but the really cool thing about this is that there's just been a lot of time for you to reflect and to assess your best learnings from these sessions, these times like at Katrina, and help teams really thrive under pressure. How did you respond to the stresses that your team was going through in real practical ways? And what did those stressors look like?
Well, I think sleep was part of it.
Right.
And honestly, at night, not a lot happened in the triage unit. We'd see an occasional patient, but most of the team would go sleep at the warehouse for the Mississippi Delta Queen paddle boat. It was on the water, and the police were over there running that and taking care of all that over there. And they were great, by the way. They fed us. What
kind of food? What kind of food would they give you?
Like New Orleans food, man. Like, so we're eating these meals ready to eat.
Did you have any beignets? Do you have any of those? Those little.
We did
donuts?
not have beignets, but we had gumbo that you wouldn't believe. Go over there and we get to the warehouse for the Mississippi Delta Queen, and I'm meeting the people, and I get to this one police officer, and he said, what are you guys eating? I said, oh, we're good, man. We've got meals ready to eat. These, prepackaged military things they last for a gazillion years. And he starts laughing. He goes, oh man, those will constipate you. I'm thinking,
it's true.
Yes, it is true. Oh my gosh. And so he says, we're going to make you some gumbo. And that dude can make gumbo.
What goes into gumbo for folks who've never heard of it or had it before? What's in that, Dr. Dan?
Good stuff. I don't know. I mean,
it's a soup, though, isn't it? It's a soup?
Yeah, with rice and like meat and shrimp and kind of cool stuff in there. And I don't know this for sure, and I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but the whole world had shut down, and so rumor has it that there were some guys that went into Harrah's, the casino, and got the food that was there and brought that down to where we were. So we had food to eat.
I think what's really cool during these times, though, Dr. Dan, is that everyone just kind of chips in, everyone contributes, everyone's a part of it. So even though there might have been some liberties taken with that casino, I'm sure they understood like, hey, we've got to feed folks. We got to keep people alive. We got to keep our medical staff fed so they can keep serving folks.
Well, the casino didn't have any power anyway. The food was all going to go bad. So
right.
I don't think it was the wrong thing to do. It was really cool to see how people came together.
Did you have any of your staff, or did you experience any folks that were just like, hey, even though I'm able to kind of escape at night, I'm able to kind of collect my thoughts, regroup a bit. Did anyone feel like get overwhelmed on your side of things? And if so, did you have to help them out at all?
We actually, because we had done so much work together doing big crowd medicine, had learned how to pace ourselves, and we learned how to play a lighter game. And I don't know if I should tell you this, but I'll tell you, because here we are. It's the wide lens, right?
Absolutely.
Our mascot for this event was a rubber chicken. And I have one still here. It wasn't this chicken. This is an emotional support chicken, but it was a chicken that looked like this. And we didn't have any wheelchairs, because when we would wheel people out in wheelchairs to the helicopter, the military guys would just pick up the whole chair and everything and take them. But somebody brought a...
Did you want them to take the wheelchair, or would you prefer if they left it?
Oh, it would have been great if they left it. But, they just grab the ticket and then they take off in a helicopter. It's like, wait, bring my wheelchair back. But there was somebody that showed up with a bellman's cart, like from one of the fancy hotels nearby with the big brass ball on top.
Sure.
And we duct taped a chair to that from the convention center with the nice cushy ones. And then we took our rubber chicken and we took some white athletic tape and put the chicken on top of the cart. So we're wheeling people out to the helicopter with this cart with the chicken on top. And I'll never forget this. There was a time where there was a guy. This felt like a scene out of The Fiddler on the Roof, with all the refugees with their suitcases, and that's all that was left of their belongings. Their homes were destroyed. They lost their cars, their jobs, everything. All they had was 2 suitcases, maybe 1. And they're walking out to the helicopter, kind of head down, going back and forth. And this guy looks up and he sees the chicken and he goes, "Is that a rubber chicken?" I said, "Yeah, man, that's a rubber chicken." He goes, "Why do you have a rubber chicken?" I said, "So you do that?" And he goes, "Man, thanks. I appreciate that." And he stood up and he walked out to the helicopter, kind of with his, "I got this back." And so the rubber chicken has become one of my mascots, to remember to play a lighter game. What happens when you get into a disaster and you start focusing on all the bad stuff that's going on, you lose your peripheral vision. And it's really hard to see what's going on. You can get blindsided by this. One of my buddies, a guy named Paul Wright, was a battalion chief for the fire department. And he said, one of the dangers of being a firefighter is you get so focused on the fire that you don't notice the propane tank that's behind you. So you got to keep your head on a swivel and play a lighter game. So we use this humor, not making fun of people ever, but making fun of ourselves, laughing at the chicken, laughing at the funny things that are happening, celebrating the chicken gumbo that we had, or shrimp gumbo that we had with the police officers, being grateful that we had a radio officer that was there, being grateful for 82nd Airborne guys. If you focus on, oh, what are we going to do? This is horrible. This is terrible. That becomes crushing. And then we lose our ability to provide care.
What about your impromptu patients? How did they respond to that element of lightheartedness? Were they okay with that? Just, coming from a patient's perspective. And sadly, I think I'm up to like 13 or 14 breaks now, Dr. Dan. I was a crazy kid. So I've been to the hospital a ton, but we just put so much confidence and authority in our medical professionals. And you guys are, to some degree, having a little bit of fun, and you guys are keeping the perspective right. Like, how did folks respond to that, that you guys were serving?
The chicken doesn't make noise. It's just there. So if somebody's gone through, if they're having a tough moment, we don't say, just lighten up and look at the chicken, dude. No, we sit down next to them on the cot, right next to them, and say, "Man, we care about you." We had a psychiatrist at the hospital ship. We'd get on the radio. The psychiatrist would come over and sit next to them on the cot. I'm not talking somebody's laying down. I'm talking 2 people sitting next to each other on the cot saying, "All right, how can we help? We're here. We care about you. You will get through this." But it was never, "Why are you upset? Just look at the chicken." No, not at all. But the chicken was a reminder for my team. And then occasionally people would see it and go, "Okay, It'll be all right, but never ever making fun of people, but coming alongside people and be willing to be an ear. I think one of the most amazing experiences for me that caught me by surprise was watching the local people from New Orleans helping each other.
What did that look like? What were they doing?
I
And
remember,
why and why were you surprised by that? I mean,
I just didn't expect it. I mean, I'd never really been in the middle of a big disaster before. Concerts, yes, but disaster, no. And I just figured there'd be victims. But then I met Augie. And, I did my TEDx talk on Augie. It's the best I'll ever tell that story. So if you want to hear Augie's story, go listen to the TEDx talk.
Yeah, we'll throw that in the description.
But he was a guy that lost everything and ended up helping. He showed up with a shopping cart with a couple of bags. That was all his stuff. He set it aside, and then how can I help? He was, washing feet for us and getting people stuff to drink. And it was just like, here's this guy that lost everything. And, years later, I was in Cleveland speaking, doing a keynote there. And at the hotel, I'll never forget. This was so funny, man. I got in late, like 10 o'clock. All the restaurants are closed. So I go down to the bar to get a burger. And there's a black guy sitting 2 stools down from me on the bar. And he's checking out. And the bartender walks over to him and he said, "Thanks for coming in, Mr. Diamond."
Says that to this African American
to the other guy. Yeah. So I looked over at him and I slid my business card down the bar to him. And I said, "I think you're my long lost brother, the one they never told me about." And we ended up laughing and taking pictures together and, sending it to our families and stuff. It's like, oh my gosh, here's my brother from another mother. And, so we sat and talked for a while, and he said, "Yeah, I'm a cop from New Orleans and I'm moving up here." And said, "No way, man. I was in New Orleans ran the medical triage unit at the convention center." And he said, "I was there." I said, "No way, man. Seriously." And I pulled out my phone and I said, "Do you know Augie?" And he goes, "That's Xbox." I said, No. This guy's name is Augie." He goes, Yeah. His name is Augie, but we all called him Xbox. And he said, "Xbox got mental health issues, man." I said, "No kidding. I just got done doing a TEDx talk about Augie, and I had no idea." And now that I know that story, it's an even better story that here's a guy who lost everything, had a history of mental health issues, and he still showed up and said, "Hey, man, what can I do to help?" It changed my perspective because I think, man, it's easy to slide into that victim mode of, I don't have any power. Who's going to help me? Here's a guy that lost everything and had the deck stacked against him, and he still showed up saying, "How can I help?"
What do you think made Augie unique, Dr. Dan?
I don't think he was unique. I saw it over and over again. And it was interesting. I got interviewed by Anderson Cooper a couple of times. Went out in a rowboat with him and, motored around, or I guess it was a motorboat.
What were you guys what were you guys doing out in the boat? Why were
He
you
was interviewing me as we were going through the water and talking about all the stuff. And
what were you guys seeing when you were on the boat?
lots of gross stuff floating in the water. And
Can you elaborate a little bit? Like
lots of destruction,
Mhm.
a few dead bodies.
Right.
It was brutal and stinky. It was, it was intense. But you got Anderson Cooper, got interviewed by Larry King, Soledad O'Brien, and it was, I saw Anderson Cooper when I was in Haiti and said, during Katrina, you guys were asking over and over and over again, why are there so many victims? And rightfully so. But I was asking a different question. The question I was asking is, what is it about some of these people that they don't become victims? And that changed my life, that question, because I started looking at these people going, I don't know what I would do if I lost everything. I had a picture that I took of a pile of stuff. It was a little child's pedal car, little red fire truck thing, I think. and a bunch of chairs and stuff. And there was a laptop computer sitting there that was, abandoned. I don't know what I would do if I lost my Palm Trio, my laptop computer, all my stuff. But I would say somewhere in the range of about 20% of the people that we saw were leaning in and saying, how can we help? I'm glad I survived. I'm not worried about my stuff. We'll rebuild later. How can we help? It challenged me because I think my natural tendency when I'm not doing well is to go into that victim mindset. I ended up writing my book about this.
What's your book called?
Beyond Resilience, Trench-Tested Tools to Thrive Under Pressure. And it was people like Augie that changed my life, literally changed my life.
Along the lines of all these experiences that you had, it's really exciting and interesting, Dr. Dan, how the things that you expect to happen, sure they happen, but it's the unexpected that are the real jewels when we're on these types of experiences and we're serving. It's these surprising moments. How would you say that this specific disaster response, because at the beginning we talked about how you've been on other disaster responses, how did this one prepare you for future disaster responses? And also, how was this different, if any way at all, to other disasters that you've been on?
I always keep a journal when I'm deployed.
Why do you do that?
Because I want to be able to reflect back later and think about the stories. And I kept a journal when I was in the refugee camp back in 1982. And I'm glad I did, some of the insights. I always try to come up with a word to describe the disaster. It's just narrow it down to one word kind of as a title in my head for this disaster. Katrina was bizarre. Haiti was devastating. The Philippines came down to one word, we.
What do you mean?
In the Philippines, it's significantly different than any of the other disasters I've responded to, and I've done a bunch of them now. In the Philippines, they don't ask who's going to help me. Their culture is all about we. And I saw multiple examples of homes getting destroyed. And before the wind even stops blowing, they're at each other's houses going, man, are you okay? Brad, are you good? Your family okay? Nobody got hurt? We're cooking some rice. Bring everybody over. We'll eat dinner, and then we'll figure out whose house we're going to rebuild first. Wow. Do we do that? I think I might now because I saw it in the Philippines and went, when I grow up, I'm going to be like that. Katrina, there was just strange things.
Yeah, you referred to Katrina as bizarre.
Bizarre.
Why do you call it that, Dr. Dan?
Because I have one image that I'll never be able to get out of my mind.
Hit us with it. What was it?
My staff came up and said, Diamond, this lady over there says she could swallow a snake. And I'm not shy. So I walk up to her and I say, hey, I understand you could swallow a snake. And she says like this.
Why would someone ever, how do you find out someone can swallow a snake? Why would someone ever learn how to swallow a snake? What's the benefit of snake swallowing?
She was a street performer.
Okay.
Now, I'm a street performer, but
yes,
I never thought about swallowing a snake.
Could you integrate snake swallowing into a mime?
No.
Not happening.
You're going to put something in a box, it's going to be a snake, and it won't be able to get out. But I walked up to her and I said, I understand that you could swallow a snake. And she says like this, I sure can. I'm like,
she's proud. She's proud of her snake swallowing.
It's nasty. Do you have a snake? She said, I sure do. And she pulls a live snake about probably 3 feet long out of her purse and swallowed it, pulled it back out and swallowed it again. And my jaw's on the floor going.
What was the snake doing when it was being swallowed? Did it
wishing
care?
it had arms? I mean, how does that happen? Did you just wake up one day and go, I bet I could swallow that snake.
I
It's
feel
the
like maybe to
weirdest
some
thing.
degree, Dr. Dan, it's just this lady getting back at all those boa constrictors and all those snakes. There are some snakes that like will eat animals, mammals whole, right? Yeah, they'll constrict them and then kill them and then they'll eat them. So it's just kind
I'm
of
not
like,
even going to begin to try to
it's
explain.
payback. It's payback. We're eating the snakes.
It's just bizarre. It's the strangest thing. You can't unsee that either. It's just wrong. Oof. But yeah, I mean, it was just such a bizarre experience in so many ways. I remember, and this is kind of an inner thing for me, but it was Wednesday morning at about 10 o'clock, and I'm sitting on the cot, and these helicopters are taking off all over the place, and I was having a little conversation with God, and I said, I'm a small town family practice doctor from Bremerton, Washington. Not an emergency room doctor, not a trauma surgeon. I'm just a small town family practice doc. And I'm running the only functioning medical facility in the entire city of New Orleans. And I heard God chuckle. I think God prefers to use the second string people, not the fancy pants ones with all the stuff, but just people that are willing, just ordinary people like you and me, to come in and make a difference. It was a privilege and an honor to be there.
So, Dr. Dan, what would you say from your perspective and in your mind, how do you feel like we did in responding to folks in Katrina? I know that there was a lot of news around how we could have done better. And I'm not talking about your triage area, but I'm talking about meeting the needs of people in a timely manner, helping people get unstuck and out of the situations that they were in. How do you feel from your perspective? And now that we've got 20 years behind us, how do you think we did?
I think we did the best that we could with what we had. I did not meet people that were incompetent. I met, like I said, all the military guys were very committed to doing the very best that they could. Our team was very committed to doing the best that we could. The local emergency medical services people, wow, were they committed. I mean, there was, and this is one of my most favorite stories. There was two paramedics that showed up from New Orleans. They had the shirts on, the uniforms, the blue shirt that says New Orleans Emergency Medical Services on the front, and then paramedic in big letters across the back. And they showed up and said, how can we help? And I said, we could use some help in the red zone because we need some people with IVs and that kind of stuff. So that'd be super helpful. So they're over there working and doing all this stuff. And I had one of the guys working in the initial front end, who goes where, directing traffic. And I was looking at the woman paramedic and going, man, this lady is really smart, really smart. So I went up to the other paramedic guy and I said, hey, is Juliet a paramedic? And he said, no, man, she's the director of emergency medical services for the city of New Orleans. That's Dr. Juliet Saucy. I went, oh, shoot, man. So I went over to her and I said, Juliet, I am so sorry. I thought you were a paramedic. I had no idea you were a director of emergency medical services. We work for you. You don't work for us. So we're here to serve you and do anything we can to support you. Please forgive me for just telling you what to do and where to go. And she looked me right in the eye and she said, you have no clue. We begged God that he would send you. You are the answer to our prayer. You keep working here. We'll come in and help when we can. I've got meetings around town that I need to go to with the mayor's office and some of the government people, and I've got to do some of that. But when I can, I'll come here and work. But if you can do this, we'd be happy. We'll come and help. But if you could do this, man, this would be just so awesome. Please. I had this sense of, wow, I'm standing in the presence of a hero. And I said, how are you doing? And she said, it's been tough. I just bought a new home and hadn't moved into it and found out that it was destroyed in the storm. My house is underwater. I've been living in the back of an ambulance for the last 5 days. I said, do you mind, like, what's with the paramedic shirt? Are you trying to throw off the out of town guys? And she goes, no, it's the only shirt I own. Wow. I mean, she was working 18-hour days, and that's not an exaggeration. 18-hour days from the time she woke up until the time she went to bed. I dedicated my book to her and to her people in New Orleans.
Powerful story. That's powerful, Dr. Dan.
Oof. Talk about heroes.
No kidding. You know, one of the criticisms that came out was that folks that live in minority communities or minorities were just not being served, and not being served in ways that they should have been, or maybe they were being underserved. You were there right in the middle of everything, Dr. Dan. From your perspective, I'm not saying what happened everywhere else, but from your perspective, was there any validity in that? Or did you guys get a chance to serve folks regardless of their background?
Oh, we saw people no matter what.
Right.
And I remember when I was in high school, there was somebody came out with a shirt that said God is colorblind. And I think that's not right. I think God celebrates color. And so my attitude has always been, how do I learn from people that are different than I am? How do I understand? How can I be curious? I'm not any better than anybody else. I got stuff. You got stuff. It's like, how do we come alongside people that are different and treat them with the love that we would want to be treated ourselves, and we'd want our families to be treated? So yeah, we never looked at anybody and went, oh, white people first. No way, man. It was like, we looked at it with green, yellow, red, and black. Yes. But those weren't skin colors. Those were triage. Level
of need,
severity.
really.
Yeah, levels of severity. Yeah. But I do think that there were, some of these areas were hit harder. A good percentage of New Orleans is built below sea level. I read some stuff later that the levee wasn't built like it was supposed to be built. So the water, when the storm surge came, the water level went up really high, and it pushed down and went under the wall and washed out underneath the levee, and eventually just lost the levee in a couple places.
Collapsed.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that there were the lower socioeconomic areas tended to get, I think, hit a little harder. I don't know much about what happened out in those communities because I was just at the convention center. At one point, I had the privilege of going up in the helicopter with General Caldwell and seeing the view from the air.
What did it look like? What was your impression?
I mean, he said to me towards the end, like the end of the first week or so, is there anything I can do for you? I said, well, at some point when it calms down, I'd love to see what it looks like from up in your helicopter, because all I know is like this maybe 1 square mile that I can see around here. And he said, come on. And he took us up, and the devastation was much, much, much bigger than I thought, just being in my little area. The flooding was horrific. I met Sergeant Bailey, who's one of my lifetime heroes. And he was one of the guys that I met. He was one of the New Orleans traffic cops, and he did not leave town. He stayed. Some of the police evacuated when everybody was told to evacuate, but he stayed. And he got, if you could just imagine this, the storm hits, they think that they've been spared. It was heading straight for New Orleans and then veered east and hit landfall a little bit east, but New Orleans still got hit hard. He was out in his front yard the following morning picking up the branches and getting ready to do a burn. And then he heard this weird sound, and he looked down the road, and there was a wall of water coming at him. The levee just broke. And he ran back in his house got up on the roof. And I wish that you ought to find him and interview him, because he was pacing back and forth on the roof. And he did it He had this really cool Cajun accent, really deep accent. And there's white Cajuns and there's black Cajuns, but they have the same accent. And he said, Diamond. It sounded just like, I think I could fool his mom. Diamond, I paced back and forth on that roof for about 11 hours. I was looking at that water, and that water was nasty. Then I realized if I'm going to make a difference, I'm going to have to jump in. And it's one of those kinds of deals. When I'm doing my keynote presentations, I tell this story because I think we've all been in that situation at work where we're looking at it going, man, if I jump into this stuff for the rest of my life, they're going to go, you smell a little bit different ever since you jumped into that stuff. He swam to the neighbor's house, held onto their gutter, swam to the next neighbor's house, swam to the next guy, the neighbors, and stood on top of their van that was completely submerged. He said he swam for about a mile before he was rescued by 2 Vietnamese people in a 17-foot aluminum boat. And they saved the lives of over 400 people.
These are folks that were like stranded and they would have drowned if it wasn't for them jumping out and doing that, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Dan, you can put on a pretty good accent too. That was great. Felt like I was watching. I felt like I was watching Forrest Gump or something. That Bubba, right?
When you're looking at the water, if I say the water's nasty, that's different than the water was nasty. It's like,
yeah, that's better.
It smells
right.
different. It smells different.
So what would you tell other medical professionals? What advice would you give them based off of all your experiences and maybe specifically with Katrina? If they jumped into the middle of something like this, what would you tell them? You got one thing you can say to them.
This is going to sound really bizarre. You can't put the patients first.
That's shocking.
Like a violation of everything that they told me in medical school. I almost killed my team in Haiti. We got there on day 5. We had a line of people, many of whom had open fractures for 5 days, bones sticking out, stuff, So we got in and set up shop and started seeing patients, and we're 3 days into seeing patients, and one of my staff comes up to me and says, "Hey man, did you see the crack?" I said, "Yeah, the one in the office downstairs." He goes, "No, not that one. Let me show you." And he took me outside, showed me this crack. The whole surgery suite was cantilevered off the front of the building. And there was a crack running right up the side where that was attached to the building. And it wasn't that I hadn't seen what could happen, because I had driven by lots of buildings where the whole front end of the building fell off. So we had to wrap up our cases that we were working on and then evacuate. And I went to the United Nations and met some engineers from Spain, and they came over and helped us build some pillars out of big rocks to hold the front of the building on so we could get back to work. But I have to take care of myself so that I can take care of my team so that we can serve the people that need us. It's not everything's the Dan Diamond show, far from it. But I have to take care of myself. I have to get enough sleep. I have to make sure I'm safe. We use the same strategy that the fire department does, where we have an incident commander, because I was trained by the fire guys, and the incident commander, until he assigns a safety officer, the incident commander is the safety officer. I had not assigned a safety officer, so it was my fault that I didn't see that crack because we were so focused on the patient. So I have to take care of myself. I have to take care of my team. I have to make sure that we're working in a safe place. And there's sometimes where you go, the front of the building's cracked. It could fall off. What do we want to do? And you huddle with the team and you go, we're willing to lay down our lives to help these people. That's a conscious decision. That's not I wasn't thinking about it kind of thing because I was so focused on the patients. No, I have to think about keeping myself safe so I can serve my team, so we can serve the people. And that's hard to do because it's been ingrained in the medical people that the patients have to come first.
Do you think that philosophy can and should translate into other areas of response as well?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. How about being a parent? Or in my case, being a grandparent? I don't take care of myself. I'm not really at a point where I can be helpful for my grandkids. So it's not a selfish thing to take care of yourself. It's not a selfish thing to take care of your team. And when I'm working with organizations around the world on how do you lead in a high pressure, high stakes situation, we talk a lot about leadership starts here. And there's a conversation that's going frequently between here and here. I don't know if you have multiple voices. I do. I have one voice going, "What are you doing? You're crazy. Why are you here?" I have another one going, "No, this is serious. I want to serve these people. I want to show up with love." But you don't know what you're doing. Yeah. I mean, all these leadership starts here, and then leadership spreads out to my team, and then it spreads out to the communities that we're serving. Whether that's a tech company or, a large faith-based organization or whatever, it starts here and goes out to my team and then goes out to the people that we're trying to serve.
It's good. It's really good. I think what's really fun about this episode and this podcast is it allows folks to get a glimpse and experience something that they haven't experienced before. And that's like really getting into your shoes, Dr. Dan, and understanding what Katrina was like and what you guys did on the ground. So that's super, super helpful. If from your mind, though, Dr. Dan, I mean, you were there, you sat with your own eyes. Is there anything in your mind that you feel like the media just didn't tell that you think that they should have, or that you wish that they would have?
Yeah, the biggest story was Augie's story.
Right.
I mean, and there were so many people like Augie that were serving their neighbors, loving on their neighbors. And it's so easy for all of us to get caught up in the story of, oh my gosh, this is so horrible. Yes, it was.
Right.
But there was also this story of, wow, people were helping each other. They were loving each other. They were sharing food. They were doing this stuff, I mean, the Philippines, it was more obvious, but it was going on in New Orleans too. How do we tell that story?
So in the end, Dr. Dan, how long were you there? How long were you in Katrina? And when did you guys realize that it's time for us to go? We've done what we can. They got their feet under them now. We can head back to Seattle.
Yeah, we were there a couple of weeks. And we have a tradition. These guys will hunt me down. We have a tradition that we always end our deployments by doing the hokey pokey. So we told the 82nd Airborne guys, hey, we're going to be heading out. And we always do the hokey pokey at the end before we.
Because that's really what it's all about, right?
Yeah, that's what it's all about. And I'm not kidding you. These guys got their rifles and everything, and they go, we don't do the hokey pokey, we're the 82nd Airborne. And I said, seriously? Dude, this is our ritual that we always end with the hokey pokey at the end of a deployment. And they go, all right, but you can't tell anybody.
Well, you just did.
I just did. But that was 20 years ago now. I think I'm probably okay.
I think so too.
Yeah, they did it with us.
That really is a testimony to the camaraderie and how you guys really felt like you were all in that together.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that type of sentiment? I mean, some folks are saying, Dr. Dan, that the U.S. is probably the most divided it's been in a long time, if ever. How do you feel like those types of situations that are tons of pressure, how do they really benefit us as a country, bringing us together like that?
I think one of the most important lessons that I've learned over the years is the willingness to stay curious and to say, what does it look like from your perspective? When God built your faith,
doesn't that kind of get tiring? Doesn't that kind of get tiring over time?
No.
Mm-mm. Always saying like, you know what? I want to find out.
What am I missing?
What's making these other folks tick? I want to get in their shoes.
Yeah. When God built your face, he put your eyes right next to each other. One of my principles of life is proximity. How do I come alongside people shoulder to shoulder, not coming in, I'm the expert and I know what I'm doing.
Were you tempted when you were a young doctor to do that though?
No, I married an ER nurse. She schooled me. Yeah. How do we come alongside each other and say, we're in this together? If I tell my teams when I deploy at the airport, because we never know who's going to be on the roster and we get to the airport, one of my little speeches is, I'm the team lead on this thing, and I'm going to make at least 3 major mistakes during this deployment. I would appreciate it if you would tell me before I blow my leg off. And then when I make a mistake and they call me out on it, like, dude, don't do that thing. That's not good. Then I'll say, okay, that's one. I got 2 more left. Thank you.
What do they think about that? I mean, that's a very sober and sincere and honest way to communicate to people, and you're their leader. How do they respond to that?
They're good. I want to invite their voices in because we're going into an unfamiliar environment, and there's lots of stuff that I don't know. Like, I learned how to treat bloody noses not in medical school, not in residency, but I learned it from a couple of firefighters. Like, seriously.
What did that look like? I mean, how come you didn't learn it beforehand, and how did they teach you that?
I probably didn't learn it beforehand because none of the doctors ever said to the firefighters, hey, man, what do you know about nosebleeds? Because they all figured they knew.
Right.
I was working with these guys and they said, no, man, here's the deal. Have them blow their nose. And I'm not giving free medical advice. I'm just telling stories here, so don't come for me later.
You got it.
Blow your nose, get the clots out. And then he took 2 tongue blades and put tape around them, and they'd spread that out and just clamp them on the nose like this. And said, you leave that thing on there for 15 minutes and take it off. If you're still bleeding, then come back and see me again. It works. When we were doing concerts, we'd keep tongue blades with tape around them in our pocket. You'd see somebody with a nose blade. Here, blow your nose, stick this in your nose.
How have you stayed humble like that, Dr. Dan, in your life today? I mean, you sound like you're someone who's like a consummate learner, and you're open to new insights and new ideas. How do you keep yourself fresh like that?
I think the shift happens when you realize that, or I realize that I'm not going to get it right all the time. And that other people know stuff that I don't know. And how do I create, I mean, there's a lot of stuff now. People are talking about how to create psychological safety in the workplace. And then we have all the political stuff that's going on right now that I don't want to get into, but there's a lot of quieting everything and not having these conversations about how do we learn from people that are different. And I'm talking about different as in you pick the dimension that you want to pick the difference on. You could have old people, young people, men, women, white, black, Asian, however you want to divide it. I learned stuff from my granddaughter. She's 9. She just turned 10 yesterday. You know what I learned from her about a month ago?
Double digits.
This is major deal. Now, you're going to want to write this down. When you're eating a maple bar, flip it over and eat it sunny side down. They taste way better.
How is that possible? How's that possible?
I get through my whole life and I didn't know this. She just taught me this a couple months ago. I've eaten more maple bars now.
Do you feel, Dr. Dan, like you are more teachable today than you were in the past? Because I got to be honest with you. Like, some folks really struggle to listen. Some folks really struggle to be taught. Some folks really struggle to be open. So how have you developed that as part of your personal value system, and has that increased over time?
Oh, it's definitely increasing. And I've always been committed to being a lifelong learner. But then I've been asking different questions lately and realizing this proximity thing gives us depth perception when we come alongside people that have a different viewpoint than us. And when I'm working with organizations now, we start thinking about how do we invite the voices of different people into the conversation. And I'll give you an example. If you look at an emergency department, you're thinking, how do we get this emergency department to run more efficiently? Well, the administrators are going to be there, the docs are going to be there, the nurses are going to be there. But are they going to invite the unit clerk, the one that sits at the desk that takes the orders and does all this stuff and makes things happen? Are they going to invite the registration person into that conversation? Because probably they got some great ideas, but nobody's ever asked them. And when I was a medical student, they told me the most important person in the entire hospital, the most powerful person in the hospital, is the unit clerk. Like, don't make the unit clerk angry. They will destroy your life. But then as I've gotten older and watched how this works, people don't invite the unit clerk into the conversation and say, "What do you think? How can we run a little bit more efficiently and make this a better experience for our patients? What are you seeing?"
Why don't they do that?
Yeah, I don't think it ever occurred to them. Huh? Like, seriously, because the unit clerks know stuff. They're the most powerful person in the hospital. Why don't we invite them into the conversation? Yeah.
And I think it's probably pretty safe to say that a unit clerk is someone that we have in organizations everywhere. They might have a different name, they might have a different role, but they are that person who's keeping that concert going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. If you're working in a disaster zone, you want to get involved with the different people that are there, but also, like, I'm certainly not going to come in and say, "I'm running the triage unit. I know what I'm doing. We've got this down." And I've worked alongside, and I won't tell you which organization, but I've worked alongside other organizations that said, "Hey, we're here now. You guys can go home. You can't have any of our stuff, and we don't want your help." When our team comes in, we say, "What are your needs? Here's what we have. How can we support you?" You know, when we were in Haiti, we worked alongside the Israelis, and man, they had a great setup.
What'd you like about it?
They were incredibly well organized. They knew what they were doing, and they were generous. And one of my jobs, I see myself as being a conduit. So I'm at the Israeli compound looking at how they're set up, but then I'm also working with the Japanese people, with the local people. And then, you know, they're going, "Man, we need a X-ray bulb for our X-ray machines gone out." It's, "Well, maybe you should go talk to the Israelis. They got all kinds of equipment over there. They flew in. Let me make an introduction. Let's go over there and meet them together." You know, that kind of, then it's the whole community benefits when people get out of the way. If I come in and say, "We got this now, you guys can go home, we're good," it's like, no, that's just gross.
That's probably why it's so important, Dr. Dan, as a leader. I mean, you were leading these guys to say, "Hey, this element of culture is important to me," and collaboration, open-handed, asking sincere questions, not being afraid to be wrong. Those are elements that a leader needs to bring to people and instill in a team. And it sounds like that's something that you really valued and you brought to the teams that you served in.
Yeah, when I came back from Katrina and wrote my book, I talked about the 4 different mindsets that we see in disasters. The victim mindset, the bystander mindset, the controller mindset. When I wrote my book, I used the word manipulator, and I wish I would have used the word controller. When I talk about it now, I use the word controller. And then the thriver. And they're based on 2 dimensions.
Why would you choose control over manipulator?
Because nobody will ever self-identify as a manipulator. But are you a controller sometimes? Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, it's based on 2 dimensions: power and purpose. The victims are powerless takers. You know, and it doesn't have to do with how much stuff you have. Augie taught me that. He lost everything, and he wasn't a victim.
Right.
Bystanders are powerless givers. They're saying, "Wow, somebody should do something for these people." It never occurs to them it could be them.
Right.
Like, seriously.
In some capacity.
Yeah, like, if nothing else, give money. By the way, well, and I'll tell you that we'll come back to this. The other mindset is the controller mindset's the powerful taker. They were shooting at the rescue people that weren't coming fast enough. And the thrivers, and I've got stories I could tell you on that. Oh my gosh, we don't have time today. And then the thrivers are the powerful givers. They got the power to make a difference.
Can we shift from one category to the next, or is it more like what Shakespeare said, "All the world's a stage, we're mere players"? Can we move from victim to thriver?
Oh, I do it all the time.
Tell us practically, what do you got to do to move from one end to the next, Dan?
Yeah, it's one of the 3 words that I learned from my very good friend Danny Friedland, and he's since passed away. He wrote a book called Leading Well from Within. Great book. Maybe put it in your notes for the show.
Is that good?
It's that good. He taught me the power of these 3 words: pause, notice, and choose. Pause for a moment when you're feeling stressed out and notice how you're showing up. Wow, right now I'm in a shadow mindset. I'm doing the victim thing. That's my go-to. I don't know what yours is, but I'm like, oh my gosh, things are tough. Or pause and notice that you're a controller, and then shift into, I want to live my life as a thriver. And I'm shifting throughout the day as my day goes on. So it's not 4 different types of people.
But the beauty in that is it has to be a conscious effort. And I think everything in life that is really precious and amazing changes is you have to admit the bad before you can get to the good.
Oh, yeah. And I have to be willing to love myself even when I'm doing what I don't want, instead of beating myself. It's like, all right, man, I love you, and we need you to get back into the thriver mode again. Now, there's a time for me to be a controller. If we're in a situation there's an active shooter, I'm not going to say, hey, Brad, what are your thoughts about an active shooter? Let's talk about it. I'd love to get your perspective on what you think we should do.
Decisive, make it happen.
I've been trained. I've been through, the heat course, hostile environment awareness training. I know what to do in an active shooter, and I'm not going to have a conversation with you about it. You will do it. I'll grab you by the ear. But most of the time, it's not like that. Most of the time.
So those 4 quadrants, Dr. Dan, of course, thriver is where we want to be. Controller has some validity to it, which is why it's a better name than manipulator. You're right. How about the other 2? Are those bystander?
Yeah, the bystander and the victim.
So bystander, that's fine to be in, I guess, as long as we're doing something. But then victim, that's probably a no-go.
Well, the bystanders.
No value in being a victim, though, right?
No, not a whole lot of story in being a bystander.
Right.
When I'm doing my presentations, I have pictures for each one of these mindsets, and the one for the bystander is just a blank Polaroid picture. They don't have a story. They didn't get involved. And sometimes I don't get involved because I just don't have the bandwidth, and then sometimes I don't get involved because I have self-doubt. What could I do? There's nothing I could do. Oh, yeah, there is stuff you could do.
Always.
Yeah, for disasters, support an organization that's going in. By the way, during Katrina, we had a bunch of people that had good intentions, loaded up airplanes with blankets and sent them into Haiti, where it was about 80, 90 degrees, 100% humidity. They don't need blankets. That was an example of, I know what these people need. I'm not going to ask. There's an arrogance in that. There's a kindness in it. I care about these people. I want to do something to help. But because I think that I know what other people need, we end up sending the wrong stuff, which clogged the airport with airplanes full of blankets, no way to refuel them because there was no fuel. So the airplanes with the supplies they needed had to land on the other side of the island and then drive the stuff into the city, including us. It's like,
good-natured but misguided because of a lack of a sincere willingness or wanting to really understand.
Yeah, I did this myself recently.
What'd you do?
So I was thinking about, what is my response to the poor and vulnerable in my community? And I have a heart for it, but I thought, I wonder about the people that are like at the grocery store with their cardboard signs. Usually I drive by them and go, get a job, oof. So I thought, okay, after I get my groceries in the truck, I'm going to go talk to this lady that's sitting out there. And it was a cold day, and she had her jacket on and her cardboard sign. And I walked up to her and introduced myself, and I said, it's a cold day. And she goes, oh yeah, it's cold out here. And we started talking. I said, what's your favorite animal? And she pulls out a picture, like printed on paper, not on a phone.
Right.
And showed me her little dog, and we had a great conversation. And then I flipped the switch in my brain and went into doctor problem solving mode. And I said, they should get a bench out here for you. And she said, oh, I'd never use it. I said, seriously? She goes, yeah, if I sat on the bench, I'm going to freeze to death. I got to keep moving. And I thought, here's another example of me coming in thinking I know what somebody else needs and not taking the time to say, how can I best support you?
But you got there. You got there.
Yes. And I learned a lesson in that encounter of don't be so quick to jump into problem solving mode.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's something that I can relate to, and I think everyone can. I mean, like you said at the beginning, good intentions, but we can easily jump there, can't we?
Yeah, I have a friend, Fred Reggie, who's coming out with a new book, and the title of his book is Tell Me. It's the 2 words you can use to initiate and nurture a conversation with anybody. And it's such a cool combination of words. I've taught it to my granddaughter. And so we practice, we'll go into the ice cream shop and she'll practice, tell me about those shoes.
Tell me how to eat a maple bar.
For sure. Dude, you got to try it.
I'm going to. Never would have thought. Inverted maple bar.
Yeah, sunny side down.
Sunny side down. Maple down.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Dan, what you up to now? How can folks find you? And what are you doing?
I'm having so much fun now. I'm working with organizations all over the world that want to have vibrant, thriving teams and leaders in high-pressure, high-stakes environments. I just did a 6-month leadership journey for World Vision. We had people from all over the world in our breakout rooms. That was really something to see. People from Ukraine, the West Bank, India, Sudan, in breakout rooms having conversations, coming out of their conversations going, we're all struggling with the same thing. Now we got some friendships across, that we didn't know each other before. That gives me huge joy. But I'm working with faith-based organizations, big organizations like Boeing and Costco and Hilton Hotels and Facebook. And I'm eager to support people that want to learn how to do great work, meaningful work when the resources are skinny and the outcomes matter. I do coaching, keynotes, workshops, 6-month leadership journeys.
So if folks want to engage with you or their organization in any of those areas, how do they find you? Where should they go?
DanDiamondMD.com.
Got it. Well, Dr. Dan, what a fantastic perspective on something that we thought we knew a lot about, and that was Katrina. It sounds like it was a lot more complex, but actually at the same time, incredibly rewarding for you and your team.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts for us, Dr. Dan?
I'm excited that you're doing this podcast because there are so many stories that aren't being told of kindness and insight and people coming alongside each other. So good on you. Great idea to do this podcast. The stories are worth telling, and we all have a lot to learn from each other for sure.
Well, the reality is, you mentioned your time with Anderson Cooper, and of course he's affiliated with CNN mainly and also 60 Minutes. And folks have heard those stories. Folks have seen those videos of people up on top of their roofs, and we know about the levees breaking and whatnot, but the specific uniqueness of, what's that fellow's name again? What was his name? Augie.
Yeah.
No one's heard Augie's story before, and it needs to be heard.
Sergeant Bailey. That was
That's right.
Nasty.
Nasty.
He jumped in, man. Saved the lives of over 400 people. And nobody told the story. Nobody told the story of the 2 refugees, the Vietnamese refugees and their 17-foot aluminum boat. What if they would have said, we're just refugees?
Victims.
Yeah. They said, we've got a boat. Let's go do something and save some people.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Change the world.
Change the world.
Dr. Dan, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you, my friend. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
God bless you.
Thanks, man.
That's a wrap on the Wide Lens podcast. If today's episode broadened your view of history, please follow, rate, and review us. It makes a real difference. A heartfelt thanks to our guests for their story and to Sergei Shadrin for providing the music. Know someone who's witnessed a pivotal moment? Drop us a line at ideas@widelenspodcast.com. Their story could be next. Until next time, keep looking at history through the wide lens.